We are headed to Italy. Fabrizio De André was a famous Italian singer and songwriter. He was a poet and musician, known as Faber and the poet of the defeated. He recorded 13 studio albums over a 40-year career. Born in Genoa, Italy, and raised in a wealthy family. Very poetic lyrics is what he's known for. I want to check out today with you a song called Il testamento di Tito. Tito's Will. But it has English subtitles, so if you don't speak Italian, which I don't, then let's just enjoy the subtitles together and then we'll explore the lyrics. Benvenuta, welcome to the ultimate YouTube channel where we go all around the world to explore artists, various cultures, music, genres. We talk about psychology, philosophy, and more. This is the place where education and encouragement meets entertainment. Usually I say it the other way around, but you get it. I like alliterations. I got my E. That's what you will find here, a really life-giving educational place. So I hope you subscribe. I hope you stay. Let's check this out together. Shout out today goes to Danielle. Thank you for this suggestion. Are you ready? What is this about? What was Tito's will? Fabrizio is widely regarded as Italy's greatest and most influential singer and songwriter of the 20th century. Il testamento di Tito. The Last Will of Tito, the song we're listening to today, tells the last thoughts of Tito, the good thief that is dying on the cross, just on the side of Jesus. It has a few words about each of the 10 commandments up to his very last thoughts before death. What a unique concept of a song. I'm excited to check this one out with you.
Non avrai altro Dio all'infuori di me. Spesso mi ha fatto pensare.
His voice.
Spesso mi ha fatto pensare. Genti diverse venute dall'est. Diceva che in fondo era uguale. Credevano a un altro diverso da te. E non mi hanno fatto del male. Credevano a un altro diverso da te.
This is profound. He lists the Old Testament commandment, the commandment of the Tanakh, thou shalt have no other gods before me. And here he says, I've often wondered about that. I've met all the people coming from the East. They believed in another one, different from you. So perhaps implying another God, but they never did me any harm. Is this his way of saying all these other religions that had other gods before you, as you're not supposed to do according to that commandment, they did me no harm. Very interesting. I'm intrigued by this already.
E non mi hanno fatto del male. Non nominare il nome di Dio, non nominarlo in vano. Con un coltello piantato nel fianco, gridai la mia pena e il suo nome. Ma forse era stanco, forse troppo occupato, e non ascoltò il mio dolore.
Oh, guys, I am so excited to talk to you about these lyrics. Are you hearing what I'm hearing? Let's keep listening and experiencing the song. But this is profound. Going through the commandments, but looking at them from perhaps even more skeptical way of questioning it. You're not supposed to take God's name in vain. But when I had a knife in my hip, I cried out and I said your name. And this could be a nod to, I did say your name in vain. Did he curse? Did he cuss? Or was he crying out to God? But maybe God was busy and didn't listen to my pain. What does it mean to take God's name in vain? When you say God's name, be it as a curse, be it when you're hurting and you exclaim it in a not so praiseworthy type of way, you're ultimately looking for God's help. Why did he not answer? Was he busy? He didn't listen to my pain. I am so far hearing a very skeptical way of looking, the thief, Tito's way, looking at the commandments here. Keep in mind, there were two thieves next to Jesus on the cross, the story says, and the scriptures say that the repentant thief, the one that asked Jesus, said to Jesus, Lord, remember me when you comest into your kingdom. Jesus then said to, you will be with me in paradise. This thief in ancient Christian tradition is often referred to as Titus, or in Spanish and Italian, Tito. Let's keep listening. This is very interesting.
Ma forse era stanco, forse troppo lontano. Davvero lo nominai in vano.
Wow.
Onora il padre e onora la madre e onora anche il loro bastone. bacia la mano che ruppe il tuo naso perché le chiedevi un boccone.
Wow, God. I really appreciate this. That verse has been quoted so many times in my life. And there are other scriptures where it talks about honoring your father and mother. And sometimes my frustration was that the verse that comes either before or after was where parents are commanded not to provoke their kids to anger. But ironically, often the verse I would hear was honor your father and mother. And I think that as people do, we take some verses and hyper-focus on them more than others, or take things out of context and bend it to our argument's sake. And so I gotta say, I personally appreciate the honesty here. Oh yeah, you gotta kiss the hand that smashed your nose because you asked for something to eat. Oh my gosh, he's very skeptical towards these commandments. And I do have to say, and I don't think I would have said this years ago, but at this point in my life, I can appreciate the honesty. Let's talk about these commandments. Let's talk about religion. Let's talk about rules in an honest way. That doesn't mean that, there should be no rules. That doesn't mean everything goes or that there's nothing beneficial, perhaps a good message behind some of this. But can we also question? Can we criticize? I would like to believe that, God can handle that.
Per il tuo naso, perché le chiedevi un boccone. Quando mio padre si fermò il cuore, non ho provato dolore. Quando mio padre si fermò il cuore, non ho provato dolore. Ricorda di santificare le feste, facile per noi ladroni. Entrare nei templi che rigurgitan salmi di schiave dei loro padroni, senza finire legati agli altari, sgozzati come animali, senza finire legati agli altari, sgozzati come animali. Il quinto dice non devi rubare e forse io l'ho rispettato, vuotando in silenzio le tasche già gonfie di quelli che avevano rubato. Ma io senza legge rubai il nome mio, quegli altri nel nome di Dio. Ma io senza legge rubai il nome mio, quegli altri nel nome di Dio.
I love the flute.
Non commettere atti che non siano puri, cioè non disperdere il seme. Feconda una donna ogni volta che l'ami, ciò sarai uomo di fede. Poi la voglia svanisce e il figlio rimane, e tanti ne uccide la fame. Io forse ho confuso il piacere e l'amore, ma non ho creato dolore. Il settimo dice non devi ammazzare se del cielo vuoi essere degno. Guardatela oggi questa legge di Dio, 3 volte inchiodata nel legno. Guardate la fine di quel Nazareno, e un ladro non muore di meno. Guardate la fine di quel Nazareno, e un ladro non muore di meno. Non dire falsa testimonianza e aiutali a uccidere un uomo. Lo sanno a memoria il diritto divino e scordano sempre il perdono. Ho spergiurato su Dio e sul mio nome, no, non ne provo dolore. Ho spergiurato su Dio e sul mio nome, no, non ne provo dolore. Non desiderare la roba degli altri, non desiderarne la sposa. chiedetelo a quelli, chiedetelo ai pochi che hanno una donna e qualcosa nei letti degli altri già caldi d'amore. Non ho creato dolore, l'invidia di ieri non è già finita, stasera vi invidio la vita. Ma adesso che viene la sera ed il buio mi toglie il dolore dagli occhi e scivola il sole al di là delle dune a violentare altre notti. Io nel vedere quest'uomo che muore, madre, io provo dolore nella pietà che non cede al rancore. Madre, ho imparato l'amore.
His voice is very, very unique. Total Wiedererkennungswert. I could see why he was so beloved. Just having that vocal recognitional value and one-of-a-kind songwriting. I want to pull up the lyrics with you. So I definitely hear a very critical, perhaps even cynical analysis of the commandments. And the one that I recall being more about not committing adultery, he made more about love and pleasure and, not wasting your semen. I personally would argue that that's not what that commandment meant, and that at the end of the day, all these commandments, as Jesus said himself, can be summed up to love your neighbor as yourself, right? That golden rule, do unto others. If I don't want someone to, betray and cheat on me, I shouldn't do it to them. If I don't want to be killed or stolen from, I shouldn't do it to others. That's how I gather those. But I do think that this is from the perspective of that thief, that last will of Tito, of Titus, on the cross, an honest conversation about the hypocrisy with these commandments and the people that are so focused on keeping the law and yet breaking it themselves, right? Talking about thou shalt not kill as they killed this man for being a thief. And he goes through these various commandments, as you saw in the subtitles. You shall have no other gods before me. Don't take the name of the Lord in vain. Honor your father and mother. And he shows how the other people that worshipped someone other than God, that had a God before this one, didn't hurt him. And often it comes back to the pain, dolore, right? He often says these other people that had other gods or took other gods before the one that is giving these commandments, they didn't hurt him. They didn't cause him pain. Do not take the name of the Lord in vain. And he's speaking of this knife stuck in his hip or in his back, screaming for God's name, but maybe God was too tired or really far away. And so he said his name in vain. And so there's a completely different play on saying the name in vain, where perhaps the commandment is often interpreted as basically saying don't misuse God's name. Here he's taking the in vain, literal it feels, and he's basically saying in vain did I call out for God because he didn't come and save me. And it's a very interesting play on words here, a very honest criticism of a commandment that has people confused. Because on one hand, we're not supposed to take God's name in vain. On the other hand, in the sense of what? In the sense of not misusing it, not cursing God, not using it falsely. Perhaps that's how it often, I think, would be interpreted. But at the same time, plenty of people feel like they're calling out to God in vain. The irony, I think, is what this song is also dealing with a lot. Then it speaks of honoring your father and mother and speaks of that you're supposed to kiss the hand that broke your nose. And perhaps his father abused him because here, either the character of Tito, or the songwriter in his personal life, when my father's heart stopped, I didn't feel any pain. Perhaps he was abused by his father and hadn't received that love, and yet the commandment is to honor his parents. It's like you're supposed to kiss the hand that hurts you. I did not feel any pain when that life was done, when his father's heart stopped. Earlier we spoke about people that didn't do him pain to now not feeling any pain. Remember to observe the Sabbath. Here in the subtitles it was translated as the holy festivity days. He said that's easy for us thieves, right? So this commandment is easy because when people are busy observing the Sabbath and having their religious festivities, the thief can break into the temple, breaking into temples, spewing psalms of slaves and their masters. I thought here when I was reading the subtitles that it was talking about the people who are in the temples honoring these religious holidays as they're busy reciting psalms of slaves and masters. Plenty of Old Testament texts in the Tanakh that talk about various things, including slavery and rules for all of that. And I think here, again, too, a ironic or cynical analysis of a commandment that requires us to keep holidays, and the thief saying religious holidays, and the thief saying, I can do that easily because I can break into that temple while everyone's busy talking about psalms about slaves and masters without being tied to the altar. I can do all that without being tied to the altar. Unlike these animals, those slaughtered animals that are being tied to the altar to be sacrificed. A very honest conversation about the irony of keeping a commandment, honoring the Sabbath or honoring these festival days where animals were being sacrificed, where people are reciting psalms about slaves and masters and being chained, all while the commandment is to honor all that. And this thief saying, easy for me, because I can do that without being tied to the altar. The fifth say, you must not steal, and perhaps it's when I have observed. Interesting conversation here. Stealing from the pockets of those that had already stolen. Maybe I didn't really steal because the stuff I took, whoever I took it from, they had already stolen from someone else, right? It's almost like if you have a thief who is stealing bread for the hungry from someone who was stealing from people with their taxes and their inflated prices. I stole in my name. They stole in God's name. Very interesting. You shall not commit impure acts. This is where I think that some of the translations actually talk about not committing adultery. Here he makes it about impure acts, to not disperse the seed. And then he's basically making fun of that, saying, well, so I guess we're going to have to impregnate every woman, and then that'll make you a man of faith, and it'll leave behind these kids that are now hungry. I guess questioning what that is all about, that commandment. But I do think that this one, he took a certain way. I may have confused pleasure and love, but I didn't create pain. Maybe I confused pleasure and love. Maybe I didn't understand the difference between pleasure and love, but I didn't create pain. At least I didn't cause anyone pain. My argument would be if the commandment really is about not committing adultery and committing impure acts, then if you are doing that, then you are creating pain, right? Betraying people often leads to pain, or using people for your own pleasure. The seventh said, thou shalt not kill if you want to be worthy of heaven. Look at it today, this law of God, 3 times nailed to the cross. I think it's interesting, the hypocrisy of people that want to talk about these laws as they're nailing thieves and Jesus to the cross. Don't bear false witness. They know divine right by heart, but they always forget forgiveness. Poor. Don't bear false witness. The commandment talks about not to, don't bear false witness and cause the death of someone else, to help them to kill a man, right? You don't want to bear false witness about someone that can then lead to the demise of someone. They know divine right by heart, but they always forget forgiveness. And that's what God teaches too, right? The irony of saying you're not supposed to do this, but they forget the forgiveness part. I perjured the name of God and I perjured my honor, but I feel no pain. Constantly back to the pain. This man hanging on the cross, face to face with death. Thou shalt not covet the property of others. Don't desire their woman. Tell that to the few. Ask the lucky ones who have a woman and some wealth. Interesting. Here also maybe a conversation about, it's easy to say that when you actually have something. Thou shalt not covet the property of others. Tell that to the few. Ask the lucky ones who have wealth and a woman. Very few have that. In other men's beds, still warm from their love, I felt no pain. Interesting. When you get something from someone else, another person's bed, warm from someone else's love, you feel no pain. Because we covet other people to give us something, love, warmth. We don't feel pain when somebody takes care of us, when they give us something of theirs. The envy of yesterday is not over yet. Tonight I envy your life. Very interesting. Basically saying, this idea of don't covet other people's situation is easier said than done, because for someone hanging on the cross, dying, he will most certainly envy someone else's life. Now that night comes and darkness takes the pain away from my eyes. Again, that red thread back to pain. The sun sets beyond the dunes. I watch this man dying, and mother, I feel pain. Wow. Watching Jesus. Perhaps this man, he's referring to Jesus. Mother, I feel pain. With compassion uncontaminated by hatred. Mother, I learned to love. Wow. And as he's criticizing all of these laws that have loopholes and flaws, and as he's calling out a people that are hypocritical, that are busy binding animals to the altar to keep their festivities, that are killing people for breaking the commandments that said not to kill, that, criticizing people for causing pain, and working with this whole conversation through pain. I felt no pain. I did feel pain. I didn't cause pain. To now watching this man, Jesus, die and feeling pain. Mother, I feel pain with compassion uncontaminated by hatred. This man seems to have compassion that's not been contaminated by hatred. He understood love. He understood mercy and forgiveness. And through that example, Tito, must have learned to love. Maybe that's what it's all about. Maybe it's not just about all these commandments, but as Jesus himself said, about loving God and your neighbor as yourself. This is a absolutely profound, honest conversation. Oh my gosh, what a suggestion. Thank you, Danielle. This was Fabrizio De André, Italian legend, generational star for many people. Do you know this artist? What do you think of this song? Make sure to subscribe for more, and I'll see you on the next ride. Ayo!